My last video on Scotland's poverty-related attainment gap. The theme in that video was time, and how a lack of time clearly has implications for the quality of education. In this video I wish to look at something else. Now I've got two websites here. One is the government's very own website that provides statistics in education, and there's a private company called Statista, who also give you data across a whole range of things, including education. Now the two things that I wish to look at and compare are pupil numbers from 2013 to 2022 and school building numbers from 2013 to 2022, and see if we can get an insight into what's happening there with respect to, of course, the poverty-related attainment gap. Now the first one is from Statista, and we can see there. Number of primary schools in 2013 was 2,056, the number of secondary schools was 364, and the number of special schools was 149. Now these figures are really meaningless unless you've got something to compare them with. So let's go forward 9 years to see what's happened during that time. The number of primary schools has went down by 62 to 1,994. The number of secondary schools has went down by 6 to 358, and the number of special schools has went from 149 to 109. So the bulldozers have been very busy in Scotland, knocking down all of these schools. We need to ask ourselves though, what's the significance of that? Well, it has a greater meaning when you look at pupil numbers. So let's look at pupil numbers. Now this is from the government's own website, and I'll focus on secondary school pupils only. In 2013, the number of secondary school pupils was 289,164. 8 years later, that figure rose to 306,811. That's an increase of 17,647. The next year, although this is not on the first graph, I need to go somewhere else on the website for this. In the next year, the numbers rose by 2,322 to 309,133. So over the 9-year period, the increase in secondary school pupils was 19,969. And at the same time the number of pupils were increasing, the number of schools available for the pupils was falling.
Dig it? Can you dig it?
So, given those two sets of data from two reliable sources, we now have to ask the question, what are the implications for the professionals who go there and work? And what are the implications for the well-being of the child who has to attend these schools? These are the questions we need to look at now. This is the important point. So, it's reasonable to suppose then that we're cramming more and more pupils into less and less schools. Are we cramming them in like sardines in a tin? We're invited to see that image. Question is this though: what are the implications for the well-being of the child and the retention of the teacher? Two different subjects, but they're related. Let me look at one just now. Suppose you've got a 14-year-old girl called Claire. I'm choosing girls because the mental health of young Scottish girls is a lot poorer than their peers in Europe. So let's look. Suppose we've got a 14-year-old girl and she doesn't want to go to school, and she's having a conversation with her mother, and her mother, it's a bit tense, and they're arguing. I don't want to go to school, she says. Your mother says you have to go. But the girl is now armed with information. She can say this. Now, when you went to school, you probably didn't have to wait for as long in a toilet queue as I do. When you went to school, you didn't have to wait for as long in a lunch queue as I do. When you went to school, you could walk to school and walk back again in peace. I've got to take a bus that can be chaotic there and back. When you went to school, there was probably space around the school where you could relax in a safe space and some relative privacy with your friends. You could maybe even kick a ball about. Now we can't do that. There's no space. When you went to school, when you went into the building, you probably weren't crammed up against other people, pushing into each other, creating all sorts of conflicts. It probably wasn't as noisy. Your school wasn't as noisy as our school because of the vast numbers that are there now. Your school, you could probably have more space to move about than I had. And not just that. When you go into your classroom, you got taught by a maths teacher, it was probably a bona fide maths teacher. But now, it's a supply teacher because the teachers don't want to work there as much as they used to. This problem with space and time together can lead to our retention problem, teacher retention. One simple thing is this: if there's less and less schools, but the same number of teachers or even more teachers, that means the teachers are crammed in as well and they're competing for classroom space. Not all teachers will have their own classroom. And if you can't get into your classroom to prepare for the next lesson, or worse, you don't have your own classroom at all and you go from classroom to classroom all day long, that's making your job a lot more difficult. And it's a lot more, and you've got no time to find quality, which only comes from planning, proper planning. A young, intelligent teacher with intellect and insight will see that very, very quickly and they will leave. And we will say, well, they're leaving because of the workload issue. No, they're not leaving because of the workload issue. It's because we don't have the time and they don't have the space to complete all the work we need to complete to attend to all these different needs of the children. They know that cannot be done. And when we've got a much more experienced teacher saying it can be done, they have misunderstood the nature of the problem, or they're simply playing it politics. But the problem we've got, we need the brightest and the best, but the problem with that is the brightest and the best have got some intellect about them. They have some intelligence about them. They have insights. And if they understand the nature of the problem that they've got, and they often do understand the nature of the problem, but they can see that the resources aren't there to deliver it properly, resources of time or resources of space, then they flee. And the boys and girls have got to make do with what's left. And that is a huge problem. And we can see that in falling standards. But the fundamental question is this: why did Scottish democracy allow that to happen? Why have we sat back and watched our special schools, primary schools and secondary schools being demolished, quite aggressively demolished? Why have we allowed that to happen? To what extent has the democratic process worked the way it should work, and to what extent has that democratic process been suppressed in some way? Another video, I think, by me asking the question, you've got an idea of what I think. Thanks for watching the Young Scottish Physicist, but I'm not quite finished yet with this attainment gap.